So Final Fantasy VII Revelation was just announced at Summer Games Fest, and I think a lot of us had the same reaction. Wow, this is so cool. It's finally here. I mean, think of it. 12 years ago, Final Fantasy VII Remake series was announced, and after 2 games and years of speculation, Square Enix has finally pulled back the curtain on the third and final entry of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. We now have a title, a release window, gameplay footage, and a much clearer picture of where the journey is heading. And after reading everything and rewatching the trailers and gameplay footage over and over and over, I don't think the most important thing here is like the high wind and Cid and Vincent being playable. I think there's some more sneaky details hidden out in plain sight that I can't wait to chat to you guys about today. So before we get to that, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I really appreciate you guys' reception to my news video on Dragon Quest XII last week, so that's encouraged me to do some more new stuff that's just coming out in news. So I appreciate all that feedback. So let's get into my thoughts here and what we've learned so far in this like couple hours since the release has been put out there. So let's start with the obvious details in case you missed it or are like me and are super excited to watch through this whole thing like 1,000 times. So Final Fantasy VII Revelation is launching spring 2027, which is very fitting considering that this is the 30th anniversary of the original Final Fantasy VII. Even more surprising is that Square Enix is planning to do a simultaneous launch across PS5, Switch 2, Xbox, and PC. And for years, obviously, people who have liked these Final Fantasy VII Remake games or even just Final Fantasy, we've been used to staggered platform releases, but seeing that Square Enix is launching the finale of probably its most important modern RPG project everywhere at once is sending a message that this is meant to be a global event rather than just a platform exclusive showcase. And plus, I think they've also learned not to do platform exclusive releases now. And I would fully expect this to go really well for them because you can play this pretty much anywhere now, and that's great. Now, the gameplay also confirmed several features that we've been dreaming about for decades. The high wind is there for us to travel around the planet and also parachute directly into locations below. It's really cool. And we also got some glimpses of some new locations, which I cannot wait to explore as well. And then there are Vincent and Cid, who are finally going to be playable party members. Both characters look fantastic, and they are just seemingly bringing a entirely unique playstyle to the combat here. Vincent's combination of gunplay and the transformations stands out, and maybe even a little bit of Dirge of Cerberus inspired here too, while Cid is obviously leaning heavily into the Dragoon stuff with some aerial attacks and spear stuff. Then there's also the Fits system, which reminds me of this dress sphere from Final Fantasy X-2, or even the job system as well. We haven't seen much of it yet, but assigning these things changes the character class. So it's just going to be another substantial expansion of the battle mechanics that Remake and Rebirth already did so well, and I expect this to be a perfected version of it, honestly. And all that looks exciting, but there was something that really caught my attention that wasn't in any of the gameplay trailers or any of the reveal stuff. It was actually published on Square Enix's website, and check this out. There's a statement here from like the press release, and there's a quote from Tetsuya Nomura, and I think you guys will find this pretty interesting. And if you're kind of detail driven like me, you're going to find this, food for thought. As creators, we have carefully built and nurtured the Final Fantasy VII series over many years, expanding it through numerous spin-off titles along the way. Over time, we believe each fan has developed their own unique interpretation of the story, and our goal has been to bring all of these Final Fantasy VII stories together so that they may ultimately converge in the final chapter of the remake series. Now, that's not like the full quote, but that's the most interesting part there. So, what did he say? All of the Final Fantasy VII stories coming together to converge in one basically epic finale. Very interesting. He didn't say they were bringing together the remake trilogy. He didn't say they were concluding the original Final Fantasy VII story. He specifically said all of the Final Fantasy VII stories. And that's where it's pretty interesting. And coming from Tetsuya Nomura, there's absolutely no surprises here. So when you stop and think about it, the Final Fantasy VII universe is much larger than the original game. Of course, you have the 1997 classic, Crisis Core, Advent Children, the movie that came out, Dirge of Cerberus, Before Crisis, and Ever Crisis, and now there are all the new mysteries, alternate realities, and timeline questions introduced by Remake and Rebirth. For years, we've debated exactly what the remake project is trying to accomplish, and you might see it as a straightforward remake, you might view it as a sequel, you might think of it effectively as like a multiverse story, or you might think of it as an attempt to merge different interpretations of Final Fantasy VII into one definitive narrative. Now, obviously, this quote does not answer anything, and of course it's not going to, but what I'm hoping is that by the time we hit credits in Revelation, it's going to give us maybe some more answers than questions, because if you played Rebirth, you were left on a massive cliffhanger and a massive what's next or what if or what happened. And then, of course, there's the title itself, Revelation. What does that mean? Let's examine that. The more I think about it, the more interesting this choice becomes. A revelation is an uncovering of truth. It's the moment that hidden knowledge is suddenly exposed. It's when mysteries are explained and questions receive answers. This is pretty interesting considering the direction of this trilogy. Final Fantasy VII Remake ended by creating more questions than answers. Rebirth expanded on those mysteries even further, and you might have been left with even more questions than answers. And we've spent years discussing alternate worlds, fate, destiny, Zack's survival, where he's at, will he come into the main timeline, Sephiroth's true intentions, and ultimately what any of this means. So when Square Enix chooses the word revelation as the title of the final chapter, believe me, it is very deliberate. So whether or not they can successfully deliver on those answers is another question entirely, but the title itself feels like a statement of intent. Now, looking at the scale of this game, it feels enormous. And when you consider how much of the game is left when compared to the original PlayStation 1 game, basically Remake and Rebirth were disc 1 of the original game. We still have disc 2 to play through with Revelation, and then disc 3 I think was just like the final map and some story stuff. Like, it was really minimal that was on disc 3, so we still have one whole disc worth of game to get through, and I'm incredibly excited. As you know, the original Final Fantasy eventually opens into this globe-spanning adventure where you can get the high wind and begin exploring freely. For many people, those late game sections represented some of the most memorable moments in JRPG and RPG history, and I'm excited to finally see this recreated with some modern tech. This is what I've been dreaming of since I was a kid. A fully explorable planet, the high wind soaring across the skies, meteor looming overhead, massive weapons roaming the world, and everything we've seen suggests that Revelation wants to deliver the largest and most cinematic version of Final Fantasy ever created. And honestly, I'm really excited to experience this, and I'm sure you guys are as well. But as excited as I am about everything I've seen so far, there's one thing that gives me pause or concern. The original Final Fantasy VII remains such a beloved game, not because of its scale or lore or spectacle, but because of the deeply human story that's present throughout the entire experience. Beneath all the world-ending threats and the larger-than-life moments, it is very interesting. It's about friendship and sacrifice and moving forward when things don't go the way you would have hoped. And there has been some of those moments in Remake and Rebirth, but I'm excited and also a little intimidated. I mean, when Tetsuya Nomura talks about bringing everything together, like all the Final Fantasy VII stories together, the fan in me immediately wants to see how everything connects. I want answers of all the mysteries introduced throughout the Remake trilogy so far. I want to understand how Zack's story fits into all of this, and I want to see whether or not the wider compilation of Final Fantasy VII finally comes together in a meaningful way. Are they just multiverses? I don't know. There's a lot to find out here. And at the same time, there's been a balancing act that's happened from Remake to Rebirth and now Revelation. The more lore you introduce, the harder it is to kind of maintain a clear direction of where the story is going. We really don't want the players to get lost when they experience that. I'm hoping that's what the creative vision is here. The original Final Fantasy VII resonated with players because we cared about the characters first and then the mythology second. We weren't invested in complicated timelines or alternate realities. We bonded with Cloud and his struggle to understand who he really was. We were invested in Aerith's journey and her inevitable loss, Tifa's loyalty to the party, and then Sephiroth's obsession with destroying the whole world. These connections here to these characters are what have kept people talking about the story for 30 years now next year. And for Revelation to truly succeed, I think it needs to tick all the boxes. So there's a lot of pressure on the creative team, Square Enix, and yeah, I'm just hoping that this is like the ultimate deliverable as a Final Fantasy VII fanboy that I unapologetically am. And if Square Enix can pull that off while tying together the wider mythology they've built around Final Fantasy VII, then I think they might have something really special on their hands. So ultimately, that's why this announcement feels so much bigger than the reveal of another sequel. I mean, according to Square Enix's own words, this isn't meant to be just another game. This is like the peak, the pinnacle, the culmination of 30 years of storytelling in one game. No pressure, right? So everything we've seen so far suggests that Revelation is aiming higher than Remake and Rebirth. The world is going to be bigger, the combat's going to be more refined, and the scale of adventure is going to be absolutely massive. I'm interested to see how they're going to refine on even the side missions, or how Chadley's going to be a part of this as well. Does he have a part in the story? I don't know. I'm pretty keen to find out. So are you guys excited about this? I definitely am. I cannot wait. I did not see this announcement coming at all. I was just sitting on the couch with my son playing a game. I checked my phone check on Summer Games Fest on Instagram, and there's an announcement for Final Fantasy VII Revelation. I'm like, whoa, totally taken off guard. I didn't expect to make a video this week, and so I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment your thoughts. I'd be interested to chat with you guys down below in the comments about what could be happening, what your expectations are, or are you not excited about it, or are you skeptical? Let me know. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys this week with another video. Bye-bye.